Hello, and welcome back to the basement. My name's Bob. So earlier this year, my son bought his first house, and he had asked me to keep an eye out to help him find inexpensive ways to furnish it. So I've been looking at these government auction websites, looking for articles that would be inexpensive and effective for his situation. And one of the things I came across was this giant wooden industrial workbench. So this thing is a real beast. It's 4 feet wide, 9 feet long, has like this 4-inch thick maple top. And since he has this huge empty dining area, I thought that this giant table might be a really neat industrial design piece. So I ran it by him and my wife, who's an interior decorator, and everyone agreed that this thing could be pretty awesome. In fact, my wife pointed out that with a table that big, we could have the entire extended family over at his house for Thanksgiving and everybody sit at one table. And that seemed like a great idea. So I put in a bid, but not enough. I missed it. But not to worry, I said to my son, I can build one. So studying the original pictures, it appears that the original table's top is made of something like maple and something like 4 inches thick. You can see that it's bolted together at several points through the middle of the table, and I decided to duplicate that general look. In fact, I realized I can use the all thread as an excellent tool to clamp the boards together during glue up. Now the wood I'm going to be using is southern yellow pine, which is going to have a lot more twists and turns than a hardwood that's been kind of carefully planed. So I'm going to need a lot of clamping pressure to pull these boards together. The other thing I realized is that that table in this picture probably weighs 600 pounds. I am glad I did not win that table because it would have been a beast to try to move. I bought 13 10-foot 2x8 southern yellow pine boards with an eye for a clean line down the center of the board because it's going to be ripped on the table saw, and the center of the board, that cut, is what's going to face up. This is a regular carbon steel rip blade. For doing a lot of ripping work, it's worth switching out the blade because it does ripping cuts way better than any kind of a combination blade, even if it's brand new and sharp and carbide. The regular rip blade is just a lot more efficient. The mill is 3-phase, so I have to turn on the phase converter. So I've made a jig board to get the lengths of all the screw holes exactly identical from the center. It's not super important what the exact dimension is within a 1/4 inch or whatever, but it's super important that they all be the same. I did just a little glue up overnight. So here's my plan. I have 26 boards that are all going to be bolted together using this all thread. Some of the boards are very warped. Some of these boards have quite a dish to them. Some of them are even a little bit of a corkscrew. So my plan is I have chosen the boards that I want to be the outside, just because I like the grain structure of the board. I like the way it looks, and it's a decent straight board. So this is one that's going to be on the outside, and this one is going to be on the outside. My plan is to do, using clamps and 3 and 3.5 inch wood screws, I'm going to first build the outside board sections that should be fairly straight and will have their own independent strength. I will laminate 4 members together as a single solid glued up joint. So I'll have 4 on the one side, 4 on the other. So before I glue the whole thing up, I want the table to be planar, the top of the table to be perfectly flat. It's going to be flattened, but I want to begin as flat as I can, which is to say I don't want it curved from edge to edge. I don't want ripples, and probably worst of all, I don't want to twist. I want the top of the table to sit flat and not have opposite corners higher than the other. So the only way to glue it up in a way that I am confident that is planar is if these two surfaces of these sawhorses are in the same plane. I don't care if one's higher than the other, but I do care that these two sawhorses are sitting coplanar, that they're not, twisted with each other. So I'm going to take time to very carefully level these two surfaces as perfectly as I can. If they're both perfectly level, then they're in the same plane. So these two boards are now both perfectly level, using the same level and the same orientation. So it's as close as I'm going to get. The astute of you may have noticed that I've added a strong back here that's 54 inches long, because the table is going to be just shy of 48. So I need room not only to hold the entire table slab, but to hold the ends of the table slab as I'm trying to put it all together and work on it. In a perfect world, I'd actually have it a foot longer than that, but as you can see, my space to work, well, is only this big. So it's going to be tight, it's going to be tricky, but it's going to have to work. Okay, I have glued up the outer 3 pieces. This will be one outer piece, this will be the other outer piece. They're 3 members thick, and I will bolt those together and use those as a big giant clamp. Before I do the big glue joint up, I need to counterbore all the places where the nuts will be on the ends of the all thread. I'm using a Forstner bit that more or less matches the size of the washers. Alright, so here's my plan. I have 2 beams made up of 3 boards each, one here, one there. They're drilled countersinked. I have the all thread already screwed onto the length to where I can clamp this together tightly. I have 10 free boards here. There are a total of 20 free boards left. So I'm going to glue these 10 together all at once and attach them to here at the same time, and leave it detached here. And then the next glue up, I will glue up 10 boards and attach them to there and bolt them together in the middle, but not necessarily attach them, depending on how tightly it's coming together for me. I may have to plane the middle interface where these 2 halves are joining together to get a tight joint. We'll have to see. So, with that being said, let's glue. I'm using a 3/8 water pipe in the center as kind of a locating dowel. And I will use it while I stack these things up. And I'm actually going to stack them vertical. I'll roller the glue on each board, stack them vertical, tip the whole pile over, and suck it together to clamp it for drying, and put the upper clamps on it to fix warping. I was going to build the whole thing up laying face down on these sawhorses, but I realized that I think once it's built up, the thing will be too big for me to handle, to move around and such. So I'm going to have to do the final glue up with the face up so that I can do the planing and then cut the pieces in half, cut the leaf out of it, so that I will have pieces that I can handle. I ordered this glue roller off of eBay for $4 and something. It makes a huge difference. These boards are very springy. They're kind of curved inward, so I've stacked them like opposing leaf springs so that the springiness should cancel each other out. They're not all going to be curved the same direction and be trying to bend the whole table. They'll just be trying to make the table fat in the middle, and the clamping will pull that out of it. This center pipe makes a nice kind of locating dowel, and that way I know my holes will all be lined up. So I'm using a Harbor Freight plane. It's been tuned into being a scrub plane. I followed the instructions in the Paul Sellers video of how to make a scrub plane. So some of these boards are a full 1/16 of an inch high, and in places even approaching an 1/8 of an inch high. And this scrub plane is just amazing, the speed at which it pulls these high planes. I'll be using a number 5 jack plane after I've got these high spots knocked down using the scrub plane. I also have a Ryobi power planer, and I want to get a sense of how well it works. Yeah, that's definitely a very fast way to go rough. I'll bring you back after the surface is flat. Okay, so I'm done with the power planer. I have the surface knocked down to within a 32nd of flat. I'm now using a number 5 Bailey plane to knock off the warbles, the little ridges that the rotating blade left. I'm doing a fairly light cut. And again, I'm going at angles across the work, opposing to each other. Will tend to flatten the work out. Nice, kind of paper thin shavings coming out of it. I just sharpened it. I don't have the fancy stones like Paul Sellers has. I just have a tri-stone from Harbor Freight. It's got a coarse carborundum, a medium diamond, and then a fine Arkansas. And it works. Stuff like sharpening, in my experience, is much more about having the knowledge of what you're trying to achieve and how to achieve it, and then taking the time to do it. Actually having the ideal or the perfect tool is fairly seldom that necessary. A good worker can get good results from medium tools, if not make his own. So I want to talk for just a second about why am I using a hand plane. I have a belt sander over there. I have a variable orbit sander, so I don't really have to use a hand plane. But the reason I am is twofold. One, I think it really is the best tool for this stage of the work. It really is the fastest way to knock a lot of this surface down to a pleasant appearance. Secondly, one of the reasons I'm doing the project at all is because I need exercise. I'm out of shape. I am a computer guy. I sit on my butt all day doing nothing. Doing a lot in the computer world, mind you. Getting a lot done for my employer. Let's be clear about that. But physically, not doing much. So, it does my heart good, both emotionally and physically, to do some manual labor. So when I have an opportunity to get out the right tool, do it the right way, and break a sweat doing it, I consider that to be a benefit. Oh, that feels good watching those shavings curl off of there.